My name is Porter Keller, and I used to believe my wife loved me. That belief faded on a Tuesday afternoon when she walked through our front door with a bruise shaped like fingerprints wrapped around her left arm. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Hazel Trevin, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, stood in our kitchen doorway looking like she'd been caught stealing from the collection plate. Her usually perfect blonde hair hung loose around her shoulders, and her designer blouse was wrinkled in ways that suggested it had been removed and hastily put back on. "Hey, babe," she said, that practiced HR smile plastered across her face. "How was your day?" I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing logistics reports for our company's quarterly review. Hazel worked in human resources for the same corporation where I ran operations, a mid-sized manufacturing firm called Meridian Industries here in Portland, Maine. We'd met at a company Christmas party 5 years ago, married 2 years later, and settled into what I thought was a comfortable routine. But comfortable routines don't usually include mysterious bruises. "What happened to your arm?" I asked, closing the laptop and giving her my full attention. Hazel glanced down at the dark marks like she'd forgotten they were there. Her smile wavered for just a moment, a crack in the facade that most people would miss. But I'd been married to her for 3 years. I knew her tells. "Oh, this?" She touched the bruise gingerly. I slipped coming out of the restaurant after lunch, grabbed the door frame to catch myself. You know how clumsy I can be. Except Hazel wasn't clumsy. In 3 years of marriage, I'd seen her navigate corporate politics with the grace of a ballet dancer and the precision of a surgeon. She could walk across a crowded conference room in 4-inch heels while balancing a coffee cup and never spill a drop. "Which restaurant?" I asked casually, already knowing the answer would be a lie. "That new place downtown, Harvest Moon? Cameron suggested we try it for our quarterly review meeting." Cameron Taryn, her boss. The vice president of human resources and a man who'd made it clear from day one that he considered me beneath his notice. He was everything I wasn't. Ivy League educated, old money, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and talked about his weekend house in the Hamptons. "How is Cameron these days?" I kept my voice neutral, conversational. "Fine, same as always. You know how he is?" Hazel moved to the refrigerator, her back to me now. Demanding perfectionist, never satisfied with anything. "Sounds frustrating to work with." "It can be." She pulled out a bottle of wine, expensive stuff that Cameron had given us last Christmas. "But he's good at what he does. The department runs smoothly under his leadership." I watched her pour herself a generous glass, noting how her hands trembled slightly. Hazel rarely drank during the week, and when she did, it was usually a single glass with dinner. This looked like she was medicating. "Porter," she said, still not turning around. "I know things have been a little tense between us lately, with work being so crazy and everything, but I want you to know that I love you. We're solid, right?" The question came out of nowhere, unprompted and desperate in a way that made my stomach clench. When your wife randomly reassures you about your marriage while sporting fresh bruises from her lunch date with her boss, it's time to start asking harder questions. "Of course we're solid," I said. "Why would you ask that?" She finally turned around, wineglass in hand, and I could see something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Fear? Guilt? Both? "No reason, just wanted to make sure we're okay." That evening, after Hazel had gone to bed claiming a headache, I sat in my home office staring at my phone. Cameron's number was in my contacts. We'd exchanged information at various company functions over the years, though we'd never had reason to call each other directly. I dialed his number. He picked up on the third ring. "Porter? What's up?" His voice carried that casual arrogance that wealthy men seem to inherit along with their trust funds. "I wanted to ask you about your lunch with Hazel today." A pause. Then, "What about it?" "She came home with some bruises on her arm, said she slipped leaving the restaurant. I just wanted to make sure she was okay." Another pause, longer this time. When Cameron spoke again, his voice had changed. The casual friendliness was gone, replaced by something colder. "So what?" 2 words, that's all he said. "So what?" Like my wife's injuries were beneath his concern. Like I was beneath his concern. "So I'm asking if you know how she got hurt." "Look, Porter, I don't know what you're implying, but I don't appreciate the tone. Hazel is a professional. We had a business lunch. If she hurt herself, that's between you and her." The line went silent. I sat there in the dark, listening to the dial tone, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Cameron Taryn had just made the biggest mistake of his privileged life. He'd underestimated me. You see, there's something most people don't understand about operations directors. Our job is to see patterns, identify problems, and fix them efficiently. We're the guys who make sure the trains run on time, that the supply chains don't break down, that the machinery keeps humming along smoothly. And when something threatens the system, we eliminate it. I opened my laptop and started making notes. Times, dates, patterns. Hazel's recent late nights at the office, the expensive gifts that had started appearing, jewelry, perfume, clothes that were definitely outside our budget, the business trips that seemed to coincide with Cameron's travel schedule. Then I opened her laptop. Hazel had always been careless with passwords. She used the same one for everything, our wedding date followed by her initials. It took me less than 30 seconds to access her email account. What I found there made me freeze. Dozens of messages between her and Cameron, dating back 6 months. They started professional enough, but quickly devolved into something else entirely. Flirtation, innuendo, plans to meet at hotels during business trips, and then, in a message dated just 3 days ago, "I can't keep doing this. Porter's getting suspicious. We need to be more careful." Cameron's response? "Don't worry about Porter. He's not smart enough to figure it out. Besides, what's he going to do? He needs this job more than we need him." I screenshotted everything. By 3 a.m, I had a complete timeline of their affair. Hotel receipts charged to company credit cards. Expense reports that didn't match actual business activities. Text messages that would make a sailor blush. But more importantly, I had evidence of something else. Something that Cameron Tarrant, in his arrogance, had probably forgotten about. Meridian Industries had very strict policies about workplace relationships, especially between supervisors and subordinates. Even more strict policies about using company funds for personal expenses. And absolutely zero tolerance for harassment. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized years ago, but never had reason to use. Meridian Industries Ethics Hotline. This is a recorded line. Please state your complaint. I'd like to report a violation of company policy involving fraudulent expense reports and harassment. The automated system asked for details. I provided them, all of them, names, dates, documentation. I uploaded the screenshots to their secure server and provided my contact information. Then I made a second call, this one to my sister Tessa, who happened to be one of the best employment attorneys in Maine. "Porter, it's 3 a.m. What's wrong?" "I need your help, Tess. Professional help. I'm about to blow up my marriage and possibly my career, and I need to make sure I don't get destroyed in the process." The next morning, Hazel left for work early, claiming she had a breakfast meeting with a potential new hire. I knew better now. I knew everything. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway before calling in sick to work. Then I drove across town to Tessa's law office. My sister had always been the smart one in the family. While I'd gone to community college and worked my way up through various manufacturing jobs, she'd gotten a full scholarship to Harvard Law and built a practice that specialized in employment law and corporate malfeasance. "You look like hell," she said when I walked into her office. "Feel worse." I slumped into the chair across from her desk and rubbed my eyes. I need to know what my options are. Tessa poured me a cup of coffee from the machine in the corner of her office and settled back behind her desk. "Tell me everything." I did. The whole sordid story, from the bruises on Hazel's arm to the evidence I'd gathered overnight. Tessa listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and whistled softly. "Holy shit, Porter. You've got enough here to destroy both of them." "That's the idea. But you need to be smart about this. If you handle it wrong, you could end up being the one who gets screwed. Hazel could claim you violated her privacy by accessing her email. Cameron could sue you for defamation if you can't prove everything you're alleging. I can prove it. I've got screenshots, receipts, hotel records. It's all there." "Good. But you need to protect yourself first. File for separation immediately. Cite irreconcilable differences for now. We'll add the adultery charges later if we need them. I'll draw up papers that protect your assets and establish that you're not responsible for any debts she might incur." "What about my job?" "That's trickier. Maine is an at-will employment state, which means they can fire you for any reason or no reason at all. If they think you're a troublemaker, they might just eliminate the problem by eliminating you." "So I should keep quiet?" "Hell no, but you should be strategic about it. You've already filed a complaint with the ethics hotline, right? Good. That establishes a timeline and shows you're acting in good faith. Now you need to document everything that happens next. If they retaliate against you for reporting misconduct, you'll have grounds for a wrongful termination lawsuit. I spent the next hour in Tessa's office, signing papers and planning strategy. By the time I left, I felt like I had some measure of control back. My next stop was Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the waterfront that catered to dock workers and blue-collar guys like me. The owner, Mick Murphy, had been my best friend since high school. If anyone would know the local gossip about Cameron Tarrant, it would be Mick. I found him behind the bar, polishing glasses and watching a baseball game on the ancient television mounted in the corner. "Porter, what brings you to my humble establishment at 11 in the morning? Shouldn't you be pushing papers around at the corporate office?" "Called in sick." I slid onto a bar stool and accepted the beer he offered. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." Mick's expression grew serious. "What's going on? What do you know about Cameron Tarrant? The VP at your company? Rich boy with the fancy car and the attitude problem?" Mick snorted. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Rumors, gossip, whatever you've heard." Mick leaned against the bar, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. "Well, let's see. He's got a reputation around town for being a player. Married some society girl about 10 years ago, but word is they're separated. She lives in Boston now, something about irreconcilable differences. What kind of player? The kind who likes to use his position to get what he wants, if you know what I mean. There were rumors about him and some secretary a few years back. Girl ended up transferring to the Boston office real sudden-like." My stomach clenched. "Any other rumors?" "Nothing concrete. But guys like him, they think the rules don't apply to them. Money and power make them feel invincible." Mick studied my face. "This have something to do with Hazel?" I didn't answer directly. "If you heard something about Cameron and a married woman, would you tell me?" "Porter, what the hell is going on?" "Just answer the question." Mick was quiet for a long moment. Then, "There's been talk. Nothing specific, but people have noticed things. Cameron and some blonde woman at the Marriott downtown. A couple of the bartenders there mentioned seeing them together. Cozy, if you know what I mean." I finished my beer in one long swallow. "Thanks, Mick." "Porter, wait." He grabbed my arm as I stood to leave. "Whatever you're thinking of doing, be careful. Guys like Cameron have connections. They can make life very difficult for people who get in their way." "Let me worry about that." I drove back to the office, my mind racing with possibilities. The ethics complaint would take time to investigate, but I needed to know what was happening in real time. I needed intelligence. That's when I remembered Lou Brennan. Lou worked security for Meridian Industries, a former Boston cop who'd taken early retirement after a back injury. He was a good guy, straightforward and honest, and I'd helped him out a couple of years ago when his son had gotten into trouble with drugs. Lou had mentioned at the time that if I ever needed a favor, all I had to do was ask. I found him in the security office, monitoring the bank of cameras that covered the building's common areas. "Porter, good to see you. How's everything?" "Actually, Lou, I was hoping I could ask you for that favor you mentioned." His expression grew serious. "What do you need?" "I need to know about Cameron Tarrant's activities. Who he meets with, when he comes and goes, anything unusual." Lou was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "This official business? Let's just say I have reason to believe Cameron might be violating company policy." "What kind of violations?" "The kind that could get people fired." Lou nodded slowly. I can't give you access to the security footage, but I can keep my eyes open. If I see anything that seems off, I'll let you know." "That's all I'm asking." I spent the rest of the afternoon at my desk, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while my world fell apart around me. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be Hazel calling to confess. Every time someone walked past my office, I wondered if they knew what was happening. At 4:30, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Keller, this is Janet Rayner from Corporate Compliance. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you regarding the complaint you filed last night." My heart started pounding. "Of course. When would be convenient?" "How about tomorrow morning at 9? And Mr. Keller, please don't discuss this matter with anyone else in the company until after we've had a chance to talk." "Understood." I hung up and leaned back in my chair, feeling a mixture of excitement and terror. The wheels were in motion now. There was no going back. At 6 o'clock, I gathered my things and headed for the elevator. As the doors opened, I found myself face to face with Cameron Tarrant. He looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie was loose, and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, his expression hardened. "Porter." "Cameron." I stepped into the elevator, and we rode down in tense silence. As we reached the lobby, Cameron grabbed my arm. "We need to talk." "About what?" "You know damn well about what." His voice was low, dangerous. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "Take your hand off me, Cameron." He didn't let go. "I'm warning you, Porter. Stay out of things that don't concern you." "Or what?" Or you might find yourself looking for a new job. I smiled then, a cold, calculated expression that seemed to surprise him. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. You know what, Cameron? I think I'll take my chances. He released my arm and stepped back, uncertainty flickering across his face for the first time since I'd known him. I walked away without looking back, knowing that I'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The war had begun. That night, Hazel came home late again, claiming she'd been stuck in a budget meeting that ran long. She avoided eye contact and went straight to the shower, staying under the hot water for nearly an hour. I sat in the living room, pretending to watch television while actually listening to every sound from upstairs. When she finally emerged, wrapped in her terry cloth robe with her hair still damp, she looked pale and shaken. Porter, we need to talk. About what? She sat down on the opposite end of the couch, as far from me as possible while still being in the same room. About us. About our marriage. What about it? I think we should consider counseling. Things haven't been good between us lately, and I think we need professional help to work through our problems. I muted the television and turned to face her fully. What problems are those, exactly? You know what I mean. We barely talk anymore. We don't spend time together. It feels like we're living separate lives. Whose fault is that? The question hung in the air between us. Hazel's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I know I've been working too much, she said. The department is under a lot of pressure right now, and Cameron has been demanding more from everyone. But I want to fix this. I want us to be happy again. What does Cameron think about you seeking marriage counseling? The question caught her off guard. She blinked, confusion flickering across her face. What does Cameron have to do with anything? You tell me. Porter, I don't understand what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. What does your boss think about you working on your marriage? Hazel stood up abruptly, her hands clenched into fists. I don't appreciate your tone. If you're accusing me of something, just say it. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just trying to understand why my wife suddenly wants marriage counseling after coming home with mysterious bruises from lunch with her boss. I told you how I got those bruises. Right. You slipped? I did slip. Funny thing about that, I said, standing up to face her. I called the restaurant today. Harvest Moon? They don't have any record of a reservation under your name or Cameron's name yesterday. Hazel's face went white. Maybe they made a mistake? Maybe, or maybe you weren't at a restaurant at all. We stared at each other across the living room, the weight of unspoken accusations heavy between us. Finally, Hazel broke the silence. I'm going to bed. Good idea. You'll want to be well rested for tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I smiled, the same cold expression I'd used on Cameron in the elevator. I guess you'll find out. The next morning, I arrived at the office early and went straight to the compliance department. Janet Rayner was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd built a reputation for thorough investigations and zero tolerance for corporate misconduct. Mr. Keller, thank you for coming in. Please, have a seat. Her office was spartanly decorated, just a desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet. No personal photos or decorative items. This was a woman who took her job seriously. I've reviewed the materials you submitted with your complaint, she said, opening a thick folder on her desk. This is quite serious. Harassment, misuse of company funds, falsification of expense reports. If these allegations are proven true, we're looking at immediate termination for both parties involved. I understand. Before we proceed, I need to ask you some questions. First, what is your relationship to the alleged victim? Hazel is my wife. And you discovered this alleged misconduct how? I'd prepared for this question. I became suspicious when Hazel started working unusual hours and came home with unexplained injuries. When I asked her about it, she was evasive. When I called her supervisor to express concern, he was dismissive and hostile. So you decided to investigate on your own? I accessed email accounts that I have legal authority to access as her spouse. What I found confirmed my suspicions. Janet made notes on a legal pad. Mr. Keller, I have to ask, what do you hope to accomplish with this complaint? I want the harassment to stop. I want the misuse of company funds to stop. And I want the people responsible to be held accountable for their actions. Even if one of those people is your wife? Especially if one of those people is my wife. Janet studied me for a long moment. Very well. I'll be conducting interviews with both Mr. Tarrant and Mrs. Trevon today. I need to ask you not to discuss this investigation with anyone, including your wife, until it's concluded. Understood. One more thing, Mr. Keller. Are you prepared for the possibility that this investigation might end your marriage? My marriage ended the moment my wife decided to have an affair with her boss. This investigation is just making it official. I left the compliance office feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life. That feeling lasted exactly 3 hours. I was reviewing inventory reports when my desk phone rang. The caller ID showed Hazel's extension. "Porter, we need to talk. Now." "I'm busy." "I don't care. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes." She hung up before I could respond. The roof of the Meridian building was technically off-limits to employees, but the door was never locked, and people sometimes went up there to smoke or make private phone calls. It offered a panoramic view of Portland's skyline and the harbor beyond. I found Hazel standing near the edge, her back to me, staring out at the water. When she heard my footsteps, she turned around, and I could see that she'd been crying. "They called me in for questioning," she said. "Compliance wants to know about my relationship with Cameron." "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that we're colleagues, that our relationship is strictly professional." "That's not the truth." "Yes, it is." Her voice cracked with desperation. "Porter, whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. Cameron and I work together, that's all." "I've seen the emails, Hazel." The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her hand going to her throat. "You went through my personal email?" "Your personal email that you access on the laptop we bought together with money from our joint checking account?" "Yeah, I went through it." "You had no right." "I had every right. I'm your husband. Or at least I was until you decided to start sleeping your boss." She slapped me then, hard enough to make my ears ring. I stood there, my cheek stinging, and felt the last of my love for her fade. "Feel better?" I asked. "Porter, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been lying to me for 6 months? How you've been using company money to pay for hotel rooms? How you've been letting Cameron Tarrant treat you like his personal property?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Hazel collapsed onto one of the ventilation units, her head in her hands. When she looked up, her face was streaked with tears and mascara. "It started as just attention. Cameron made me feel special, important, like I mattered. And I didn't make you feel like you mattered. You were always so busy with work, with your projects. We barely talked anymore. Cameron listened to me. He made me feel beautiful and smart and valued. So you decided to have an affair. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." One night after a company party, we ended up at his hotel room. I was drunk, and he was there, and it felt good to be wanted. And then it kept happening. I tried to stop it, I really did. But Cameron said if I ended things, it would make work awkward. He said it might affect my performance reviews, my chances for promotion. The pieces clicked into place. He threatened you. Not directly, but he made it clear that my career depended on keeping him happy. "And the bruises on your arm?" Hazel's face crumpled. "He gets rough sometimes. When he's frustrated or angry, he says it's my fault for being so tense." I felt a surge of rage so powerful it made my vision blur. Whatever else Hazel had done, whatever lies she'd told, she didn't deserve to be hurt. "Hazel, listen to me. You need to tell compliance about the threats, about the physical abuse. That changes everything." "I can't. If I accuse Cameron of harassment, my career is over. Who's going to hire an HR manager who couldn't handle her own workplace situation? If you don't accuse him, he'll keep doing this to other women." "I know, but nothing. You have a choice to make. You can keep protecting the man who's been abusing you, or you can do the right thing." Hazel was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the harbor. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "What about us? Is there any chance we can work through this?" I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd married had been confident and strong, someone who stood up for herself and others. This person sitting in front of me was broken, manipulated, a shadow of who she used to be. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know we can't work through anything as long as you're still lying to me." "I'm not lying anymore." "Aren't you? When's the last time you slept with him?" Hazel's silence was answer enough. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone on the roof with her choices. By afternoon, word had spread through the office that something big was happening. People whispered in hallways and gathered in small groups near the coffee machine. Cameron Tarrant had been seen going into the compliance office, and he'd emerged looking like he'd aged 10 years. I was working late, trying to catch up on the projects I'd neglected while dealing with my personal crisis, when Lou Brennan appeared in my doorway. "Got a minute?" he asked, glancing around to make sure we weren't overheard. Sure, come in. Lou closed the door behind him and took a seat across from my desk. That favor you asked for? I've got some information. I'm listening. Cameron's been making a lot of phone calls today, angry ones. I happened to be walking past his office when he was shouting at someone about lawyers and lawsuits. Sounded like he was trying to figure out who filed a complaint against him. Did he mention any names? Yours came up. So did your wife's. He's not happy with either of you. What else? He left the building about an hour ago. Took the elevator down to the parking garage. But here's the thing. I checked the security footage. He didn't go to his car. He went to the stairwell that leads to the street exit. Why would he do that? Only one reason I can think of. He's planning to come back without being seen on the security cameras. A chill ran down my spine. Come back for what? I don't know, but I thought you should be aware. Guy like that backed into a corner, he might do something stupid. Thanks for the heads up, Lou. Be careful, Porter. Desperate people are dangerous people. After Lou left, I sat in my office trying to decide what to do. I could leave, go home, and hope that Cameron would cool off overnight. Or I could stay and face whatever he had planned. I decided to stay. At 8 o'clock, the building was nearly empty. Most of the office workers had gone home hours ago, and only the cleaning crew remained. I was reviewing quarterly budget projections when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my office. Slow, deliberate footsteps that stopped right outside my door. I know you're in there, Porter. Cameron's voice was different than I'd ever heard it before. Gone was the polished executive tone, replaced by something raw and dangerous. Doors open, I called out. He stepped into my office, and I was shocked by his appearance. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie was gone, and his usually perfect hair was disheveled. He looked like a man who'd been drinking. We need to settle this, he said, closing the door behind him. Settle what? You know what. This bullshit complaint you filed, this attempt to destroy my career. I leaned back in my chair, projecting a calm I didn't feel. I filed a complaint about policy violations. If that destroys your career, maybe you shouldn't have violated policy. Don't play games with me, Porter. I know what this is really about. You're pissed off because your wife prefers a real man to whatever the hell you are. Is that what you think this is? Jealousy? Isn't it? Cameron moved closer to my desk, his hands clenched into fists. You found out that Hazel was getting what she needed from someone who could actually provide for her, and you couldn't handle it. What I couldn't handle was my wife being harassed and physically abused by her boss. Cameron laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. Harassed? Is that what she told you? Porter, your wife has been throwing herself at me for months. I finally gave her what she wanted, and now you're trying to make me the villain. The bruises on her arm say otherwise. Your wife likes it rough. That's not my fault. I stood up slowly, my hands flat on the desk. Get out of my office. Or what? You'll call security? File another complaint? Cameron leaned forward, his face inches from mine. Let me tell you something, Porter. I've got friends in this company, important friends, people who matter. One word from me, and you'll be out on the street so fast your head will spin. Is that a threat? It's a promise, just like I promised you yesterday. Funny thing about promises, I said. Sometimes they have a way of coming back to bite you in the ass. Cameron straightened up, confusion flickering across his face. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're not as smart as you think you are. What the hell are you talking about? I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a small digital recorder. The red light was blinking, indicating that it had been running the entire time. I'm talking about the fact that you just confessed to harassing my wife, physically abusing her, and threatening my job, all of which is now recorded and will be submitted to compliance first thing tomorrow morning. The color drained from Cameron's face. You snake! Actually, my mother's a lovely woman. Unlike you, she raised me to treat people with respect. Cameron lunged across the desk, grabbing for the recorder. I was ready for him. I caught his wrist and twisted, using his momentum against him. He stumbled and fell, knocking over a chair in the process. You're going to give me that recorder, he said, getting to his feet. No, I'm not. Then I'll take it. He came at me again, this time with both hands reaching for my throat. I sidestepped and grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from my desk. Cameron saw it and backed off. You wouldn't dare. Try me. We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. Cameron was bigger than me, but I had the advantage of being sober and prepared. More importantly, I had nothing left to lose. This isn't over, Cameron said finally. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. He turned and walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Your wife is a whore, Porter. She came to me willingly, and she'll go to someone else when I'm done with her. That's who you married. Maybe, but at least I'm not a rapist. Cameron's face went purple with rage. For a moment, I thought he might come at me again. Instead, he jerked the door open and stalked out, leaving me alone with the recorder and the knowledge that I'd just made an enemy for life. I saved the audio file to 3 different locations, emailed copies to Tessa and to my personal account, and uploaded it to a secure cloud server. Then I called Janet Rayner's after-hours number and left a message explaining what had happened. When I finally left the office that night, I felt like I'd won a battle, but I knew the war was far from over. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find 2 security guards stationed outside Cameron's office and a woman in a severe black suit sitting in the reception area of the compliance department. Janet Rayner met me at the elevator with a grim expression. "Mr. Keller, I need you to come with me. We have some things to discuss." She led me to a conference room where the woman in the black suit was waiting with a stack of legal documents. "This is Sarah Mitchell from our corporate legal department," Janet said. "She's here to discuss the recording you submitted last night." Sarah Mitchell looked like she ate nails for breakfast. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her pale blue eyes seemed to see right through me. "Mr. Keller, what you've given us is extremely serious. Mr. Tarrant has essentially confessed to multiple violations of company policy, state law, and federal employment regulations. The question is, what do you want us to do about it?" "I want him fired. I want him prosecuted if possible, and I want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else." "That's what we hoped you'd say," Sarah said, "because we're prepared to take immediate action. However, we need your cooperation." "What kind of cooperation?" Janet leaned forward. "We want you to wear a wire." "A what?" "A recording device. We believe Mr. Tarrant will try to contact you again, either to threaten you or to try to make some kind of deal. If we can get him on tape making additional admissions or threats, it will strengthen our case significantly." "Is that legal?" Sarah nodded. "Maine is a one-party consent state for recording conversations. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's admissible in court." "What about my safety? Cameron was pretty unstable last night." "We'll have security nearby at all times, and if you feel threatened in any way, you abort immediately." I thought about Hazel, about the bruises on her arm, about all the other women Cameron might hurt if he wasn't stopped. "I'll do it." They fitted me with a small digital recorder that clipped to my belt and a tiny microphone that attached to my shirt button. The whole setup was virtually invisible under my jacket. "Test it," Sarah said. "Testing, 1, 2, 3. Cameron Tarrant is a piece of shit who deserves everything that's coming to him." Sarah smiled for the first time since I'd met her. "Perfect clarity. Now remember, try to get him to repeat his admissions from last night. Get him to talk about the physical abuse, the threats, anything that shows a pattern of behavior." I spent the morning at my desk, trying to act normal while wearing a wire and waiting for Cameron to make contact. It didn't take long. At 11:30, my phone rang. "Porter, it's Cameron. We need to talk." "I think we said everything we needed to say last night." "Look, I was drunk. I said some things I didn't mean. Can we meet somewhere and discuss this like adults?" "Where?" "The parking garage. Level B2, by the maintenance area. It's private." "When?" "Now." The line went silent. I called Janet Rayner and told her about the meeting. She dispatched 2 security guards to the parking garage with instructions to stay out of sight unless things went bad. Level B2 of the parking garage was the lowest level, used mainly for storage and building maintenance. It was dimly lit and largely deserted during business hours. I found Cameron waiting by a utility room, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "Thanks for coming," he said when he saw me. "What do you want, Cameron?" "I want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "I'll resign. Quietly, no fuss, no investigation. I'll even write a letter of recommendation for Hazel. In exchange, you withdraw your complaint and we all move on with our lives." "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll destroy both of you. I've got connections, Porter. People who owe me favors. I can make sure neither you nor Hazel ever works in this industry again." "More threats?" "Not threats. Facts. I've been in this business for 15 years. I know where all the bodies are buried. Push me, and I'll push back harder than you can imagine." "What about the other women you've harassed?" "What about the next person who works for you?" Cameron's expression hardened. "That's not your concern." "It is now." "You self-righteous prick. You think you're some kind of hero. You're nothing. A middle management nobody who got lucky enough to marry above his station, and even that you couldn't hold on to. Is that what you think happened, that Hazel chose you?" "Didn't she?" "Cameron, Hazel didn't choose you. You manipulated her, threatened her career, and when she tried to resist, you physically forced her. That's not seduction. That's rape." That's bullshit. Your wife wanted everything I gave her, including the bruises. She liked the rough stuff. She asked for it. She asked you to hurt her. She asked me to be a man, something you obviously couldn't do. I had what I needed. Cameron had just admitted to assault on tape, in front of witnesses who were listening through security radios. You're right about one thing, I said. I'm not the man you are. I don't hurt women, I don't threaten people's careers to get what I want, and I don't confuse power with strength. Spare me the moral lecture. Actually, I think you need to hear this. You want to know what a real man does when someone hurts his wife? He doesn't make deals, he doesn't compromise. He makes sure it never happens again. Cameron stepped closer, his fists clenched. Are you threatening me? No, Cameron, I'm destroying you. The security guards emerged from the shadows at that moment, flanked by Janet Rayner and Sarah Mitchell. Mr. Taryn, Sarah said, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You have 15 minutes to clean out your personal effects. Cameron looked around wildly, finally understanding that he'd been set up. You can't do this. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, one of the security guards said, producing a set of handcuffs. Portland Police Department. You're under arrest for assault, harassment, and criminal threatening. As they led Cameron away, he turned back to me with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, Porter. Yeah, I said. It is. The next few weeks passed in a blur of depositions, interviews, and legal proceedings. Cameron was charged with multiple felonies and released on bail pending trial. The local newspapers picked up the story, and Meridian Industries found itself in the uncomfortable position of explaining how a senior executive had been allowed to operate unchecked for so long. Hazel and I separated officially. She moved in with her sister while we worked through the divorce proceedings. To her credit, she testified truthfully about Cameron's behavior, both to corporate investigators and to the police. Her testimony was crucial in building the case against him. I'm sorry, she said to me one afternoon as we sat in Tessa's office, signing papers. I'm sorry for all of it. The affair, the lies, the way I let him manipulate me. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know. I know you're sorry, I said, and I forgive you for the affair. But I can't forgive you for lying to me when I tried to help. We could have handled this together if you'd been honest from the beginning. I was scared and ashamed. I didn't know how to tell you that I'd been so stupid. You weren't stupid, Hazel. You were a victim. There's a difference. We divided our assets amicably. Hazel got the house, I got the retirement accounts, and we both agreed to start over somewhere else. She took a job with a nonprofit organization in Boston, working to help other victims of workplace harassment. I heard she was good at it. As for me, I was promoted to Regional Operations Director, with a significant raise and expanded responsibilities. The company wanted to show that they supported employees who reported misconduct, and I became something of a poster child for doing the right thing. Cameron's trial made headlines throughout Maine. He was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. His wife divorced him while he was awaiting sentencing, and his assets were largely consumed by legal fees and civil settlements. But the real victory came 6 months later, when I received a letter from a woman named Jennifer Walsh. Dear Mr. Keller, it began, you don't know me, but I wanted to thank you for your courage in reporting Cameron Taryn. I worked for him 3 years ago, and he did similar things to me. I was too afraid to report it at the time, but your case gave me the strength to come forward. Because of your actions, I was able to get justice for what he did to me, and more importantly, we've ensured that he can never hurt anyone else. Thank you for being brave enough to do what was right. I kept that letter in my desk drawer, and whenever I doubted whether the pain of destroying my marriage had been worth it, I would read it again. One evening, about a year after everything had ended, I was having a beer at Murphy's Tavern when Mick brought up the subject. You ever regret it? He asked. Taking down Cameron, I mean. It cost you your marriage. My marriage was already over, I said. Cameron didn't destroy it. He just exposed what was already broken. Still, it took guts to go through with it. A lot of guys would have just looked the other way. Maybe, but I couldn't live with myself if I'd done nothing and he'd hurt someone else. So what's next for Porter Keller? I thought about that for a moment. I'm thinking about going back to school, getting my MBA, maybe starting my own consulting firm. Sounds like a plan. You've got the experience now. You know how to handle corporate assholes. Yeah, I said, raising my beer in a mock toast. I guess I do. As I drove home that night, I reflected on everything that had happened. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I could face the worst situation imaginable and come out the other side with my integrity intact. Cameron Tarrant had thought he could intimidate me because I was just a middle management nobody with no connections and no power. What he failed to understand was that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one with nothing left to lose and everything to gain by telling the truth. I'd filed one complaint, made one phone call, and brought down a man who thought he was untouchable. In the end, it wasn't about revenge or jealousy or wounded pride. It was about compliance. My name was on the report, and I was proud of every word. 6 months later, I received word that Cameron had been found guilty on additional charges stemming from Jennifer Walsh's case. His sentence was extended to 10 years. He would be in his mid-50s when he got out, with no career, no money, and no prospects. Meanwhile, Hazel had been promoted to director of her nonprofit organization. She'd found her calling in helping other women who'd been through what she experienced. We exchanged Christmas cards now, nothing more, but I was genuinely happy that she'd found a way to turn her pain into purpose. As for me, I'd started my own consulting firm specializing in corporate compliance and ethics training. Business was booming. Apparently, there were a lot of companies who wanted to avoid the kind of scandal that had brought down Cameron Tarrant. I never remarried, but I dated occasionally. I'd learned to be more careful about trust, but I hadn't become cynical. There were good people in the world, and I was determined to be one of them. On the anniversary of the day I'd filed that first complaint, I drove out to the harbor and stood on the pier where Hazel and I used to walk when we were first married. The water was calm, reflecting the lights from the city, and I felt a sense of peace that had been missing from my life for a long time. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Tessa. Saw the news about Cameron's latest conviction. Thought you'd want to know. He's been disbarred from serving on any corporate boards. His career is officially over. You did good, little brother. I smiled and put the phone away. Cameron Tarrant had learned the hard way that actions have consequences, that power without accountability is just tyranny waiting to be exposed, and that sometimes the little guy wins. I'd kept my promise to myself and to every woman Cameron might have hurt in the future. I'd made sure he could never do it again. The system had worked, justice had been served, and I could finally close the book on the worst chapter of my life. As I walked back to my car, I thought about the recording device I'd worn that day in the parking garage, and Cameron's voice confessing to crimes he thought he'd never be punished for. Compliance, I said aloud to the empty pier. It's not just a department, it's a way of life. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt truly free.